He died for 3 minutes, but what he saw at the end of the tunnel was not light. And a year later, doctors found something that could explain everything, or make it worse.
My name is Jake. I'm 27. I'm an ordinary guy. I work as an IT specialist in a small company in Michigan, rent a one-room apartment, go to a bar with friends on weekends, and in the evenings turn on old thrillers that I already know by heart. My life has never been particularly bright, but it has been stable. I have no serious illnesses, I was not into extreme sports, I had no problems with drugs or the law. In general, nothing that could push me to death. Everything changed one ordinary Tuesday. I was driving home from work, stopped at the supermarket to get a frozen pizza and a can of beer, as always. It was almost 6 p.m., the city was in traffic jams. I drove on a green light. Another traffic light, slow traffic, everything is familiar, calm. Until a car crashed into me. An SUV. At full speed. I didn't even immediately understand what happened. There was a bang, a crash, a blow so hard it was like someone had turned off gravity. I was thrown into the barrier. The airbag deployed, but it was too late. My chest felt like it was bursting from the inside. I was choking on blood, without even realizing it at first. Someone in an SUV ran a red light, slammed into my sedan at about 80 miles an hour. I was cut out of the car with hydraulic shears. I lost too much blood, my heart stopped in the ambulance. I remember how it began. First there was silence. Complete, enveloping, unnatural. No pain, no fear. Just a feeling of peace that I later realized was unnatural precisely because it was not mine. It seemed imposed from the outside, like morphine injected into the mind. I woke up in emptiness. In darkness that was not just the absence of light, it was alive. Thick. It was as if I was in black water, in something viscous and unkind. It seemed to me that I was seeing my body from the outside. I was lying in an ambulance, and the medics were bustling around, but all this seemed to be to the side, in the distance. And then I saw them. Figures. Tall, thin, shapeless. They did not approach. They stood in the distance, as if waiting. I could not discern faces, and were there any? But I felt that they were watching. And it was not observation. It was expectation. An assessment. When I tried to move, nothing happened. My body wouldn't obey. Then I tried to speak. But that didn't happen either. Instead, a word appeared in my head, not in a language I knew. It echoed, vibrated through the space, ingrained itself in my consciousness, "You're back." Back where? As I asked that question in my mind, everything around me began to distort. The darkness began to move, like a viscous liquid flowing upward. Space stretched and collapsed, as if the world were folding in on itself. And then a door appeared. Right in the void, there stood a massive old wooden door. With peeling paint and a rusty brass handle. The figures slowly began to approach. And I realized if they reached the door before me, I would not return. I don't know how, but I ran. Without legs, without a body, but with a desperate desire to get out. Everything contracted, and when I touched the handle, I woke up. Abruptly. Vomiting, pain, doctors screaming. I was in intensive care. Alive. Under the sounds of monitors, under the shocked looks of doctors and an oxygen mask. It turned out that I was dead for 3 minutes and 24 seconds. They said that I was lucky. But since then, nothing has been the same. A year has passed. A few months after the accident, I began to see dreams. Always the same. I am standing at that very door. Only now it is open. And inside is a room. Empty. White. And in the corner is a figure. Standing with her back to me. Every time I come closer, she turns around. But I can't see her face. Only her eyes, 2 coal spots from which black liquid oozes. And every time she says the same thing. You shouldn't have left. I wake up in a sweat. With a terrible headache. Sometimes, with a nosebleed. I went to doctors, to psychologists. I was diagnosed with PTSD after clinical death, recommended to go to a psychotherapist and prescribed antidepressants. But I don't understand what request I should come to the doctor with. Am I afraid to die? I'm working again. It seems like I'm living as before. People who have experienced clinical death often say that they saw a white light. That they felt peace, serenity, as if they were returning home. I've read dozens of such stories. And I had darkness. A feeling of being watched. Fear. I was afraid to move, afraid to look where I felt someone's presence. There was no tunnel, no light. Only sticky anxiety and heaviness that pressed on my mind. And this door, like a threat, not like salvation. Sometimes I think, maybe something is wrong with me? Maybe I was too far? Or, maybe not everyone is called to the same place? What if someone is destined to return not because they are expected, but because they have not come? Or vice versa, they have already come, but not this time. I just developed a wild fear of death. Guys, I did not feel anything pleasant there. Absolutely. This is one of the most unpleasant places I have ever been. Now I know one thing for sure. There, after death, nothing ends. There, we will also have tasks. Sometimes it seems to me that maybe this life is paradise, and our real life is there. I started having panic attacks. Antidepressants don't help. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy. I seem to be fixated on this episode. Which is strange, it would be logical if I were afraid to get behind the wheel. But this doesn't cause me fear, it is death itself that causes fear. Panic attacks have become habitual, like brushing your teeth. They would come without warning, in a supermarket, in an elevator, even in a shower. A week ago, I went for a routine checkup. After the accident, I need to see a doctor once a year for 3 years. And here is the climax of this story. One of the items on the checkup after a year was an MRI, just to rule out the consequences of the accident, because then they examined me mainly for internal bleeding and fractures. I wasn't nervous, because my anxiety is a mental, not a physical consequence. 3 days later, they called me. The doctor's voice was calm, but too deliberately calm, as if he were practicing his intonation. "Mr. Thompson, we found a small foreign body in your skull. Presumably a metal fragment. Possibly from a car frame. It was lodged between 2 lobes of the brain, very deep. Miraculously, it did not hit anything. It does not cause obvious neurological damage, but..." "But?" I asked in a dry voice. "But his condition can provoke chronic anxiety. Panic attacks. Even changes in perception. We can't say this for sure, but it's possible. You essentially live with a metal splinter in your head." I was silent. He said something else, about a neurosurgeon, about tests, about the risks of extraction. But I didn't hear anything anymore. All these months I suffered, thinking that I saw something that I shouldn't have seen. That I didn't die like everyone else. That I touched something forbidden, that now watches me from beyond life. But it turned out, it could have just been a piece of metal. A small, blind splinter, stuck in my head, like the core of someone else's memory. After a full examination, they told me that the splinter didn't need urgent removal. It doesn't bother me and it's already firmly lodged in my skull, doesn't move and doesn't cause headaches. Now I'm completely confused. Was what I saw real? Or is it the aftermath of a concussion and a foreign body in my head? My brain wasn't affected. My brain is completely intact. Officially, I'm completely fine. But I keep seeing these dreams. If anyone has experienced clinical death, write. Have you had something similar? Or, is it just me?